Hey everybody, today we're going to be talking about one of the most common questions asked in the crystal industry. How do I price my stuff? I'm pretty sure most of us are just going straight to the internet to figure out what is something selling for, what does something cost. A great starting point, I'm sure. It is not actually the way to determine the value of much. So the first thing we want to figure out is how much is this actually worth? And what actually determines the final value of an item, especially in reference to crystals. Now I know this is going to sound like a very broad and general statement, but value is placed in the eye of the beholder. It's kind of up to you to look at an item and determine what you think it's worth and what you're willing to pay for it. Now I understand that a lot of people don't have a real reference point for that, but I think that you to some degree have the ability to value something based on your perception of it. Let's just say you took this thing and you went into a crystal shop and you saw this on a rock and you look at the price and it says $100 on it and you're like, $100? Obviously that's a high price. But now let's just say you pick this up and you kind of thought in your head already this is going to be like around $30 and you look at the price and it says $20. That's a good price for you. It's really up to you to determine the value of something based on your own perception. Now let's go to something that's a little bit more practical and can actually translate to pricing. So if we go down to the mining side of things, right, and let's take this crystal since I have it in my hand, for example. Let's say that in order for you to buy this from a miner, it's going to cost you $7, right? So this costs $7 at the mine. After transport and getting it to your location, let's just say that it cost $10. All of pricing and the margins that get put into the pricing of things are going to completely depend on what your expenses are. For example, if you are in a big city, if you're in Miami, Chicago, LA, the list goes on, your expenses are going to be drastically higher than someone who's living in like a small town or a rural town area. If you're a wholesaler, now we need to really figure out what margins are going to look like for you. So you have to factor in your rent, if you have employees, all of your bills, everything has to get factored into it. So yeah, this rock cost me $7, after shipping it cost me $10, but I have to pay for all of my expenses, so really this rock cost me $15. That should hurt the wholesaler. My expenses as a wholesaler should not have to translate to you. What it means is that some other wholesalers now might be able to sell this rock, let's just say for $20, and their expenses and everything equals $12. So their profit margin on a rock like this would be $8. In my case, the profit margin on a rock like this would be $4 because my expenses are so high. But either way, they should be selling it for $20 and I should be selling it for $20. And the standards of wholesale is really where the game kind of starts. Long story short, wholesale is where it starts. That's where we determine the mining cost of this thing is $5 a pound. The wholesale of it is $10 a pound. Now the wholesaler doesn't double their money because they have all of the expenses that go into it, right? Just because a wholesaler is going from 5 to 10 does not mean that they're doubling their money. For us, what we're personally looking at as a wholesale distributor typically is 15 to 25% markup on an item. In order for the company to sustain itself long term, you need that 15 to 25% minimum. Otherwise, it's just not a doable thing when you're running a sizable operation and when you have many moving parts. The wholesaler then sells it to the retailer, and I've been doing this for 20 years now. I can tell you that everyone is going to price things differently. The standard pricing for markup on your wholesale material, if you're a retailer, is times 2.5. So if this cost you $10 in retail, you're now going to sell this for $25, which is fair. That's usually what I recommend to retailers. But at the end of the day, you have people that are doubling their money on things, meaning that they'll sell the $10 rock for 20, and then you have people that'll times 50 their money on it. I've seen that as well. I've seen people sell a $10 rock, try to sell it for like $300, $400, $500. A lot of you are buying at gem shows, which is great for you, but if you're a retailer, you really need to find a distributor, someone who is reliable, someone who is able to cater to you throughout the years, and you're not just making these like pressurized one-time big purchases from gem shows. Again, you're of course entitled to do what you want, but I can tell you after all the years of being in the business, this is not the most business savvy thing to do. My suggestion is that if you want to create consistency as a retailer, be fair with your pricing. It happens to us all the time where people, after going to gem shows and purchasing at gem gem shows and doing their wholesale buying at places that, you know, are not exactly what they say they are, and then they find something like this here, are usually like, oh man, I wish I would have found this earlier. And that's something that you can't prevent. The learning experience that you get throughout the industry, no matter what the mistakes are completely valuable. But the point is that if you're a wholesaler, you need to determine the standardized margin, which is usually 25%. I know a lot of wholesalers are doing 50%. I know a lot of wholesalers who are doubling their money, tripling their money, which is what has led to the industry having such high prices on stuff. So wholesale, this is a $10 rock, right? I'll sell this to you for $10. But if you're buying from a wholesaler who is tripling their money, they're selling this to you at $30. Now, if you're gonna 2.5 your money, what you're looking at is $75. So you have to sell a $10 rock, which really you should be selling for $25. You're selling it for $75. And that makes you a bad retailer. Some people can disagree with me here. That's totally fine. If you're getting $75 for a $25 rock, great for you. I'm happy for you. But at the same time, when the people find out that you're doing things like that, you're going to lose customers and you're eventually going to begin to decline. I can only speak from my experience, but I've never not seen it go that way. The people who stay in the business long term, who actually make careers out of this stuff, they stick to the margins. They don't get greedy. They don't get smart. They don't think that they can get away with things. They keep themselves on track and stick to the margins. For me, I always keep my ratios the same. I can only use myself as a reference because I really don't know what other wholesalers are doing out there. But I can tell you what I do here is that I do not shift my margins. I handle my own manufacturing. I'm doing pretty much everything soup to nut. And that allows me to create consistency. It allows me to create stability around product. And that's really what you're looking for.